When was the last time you spent an entire day without checking your phone? For most of us, the answer is so distant that we can barely remember it. The average American checks their smartphone 344 times per day, roughly once every 4 minutes, of waking life. Each morning, we wake to a barrage of notifications. Each evening, we scroll through endless feeds until we fall asleep with blue light washing over our faces. We exist in a state of perpetual digital connection and profound human disconnection. This isn't just a matter of new habits or modern convenience. We're participating in what former Google design ethicist Tristan Harris calls the largest social experiment ever conducted, an unprecedented rewiring of human attention and behavior. And the evidence is mounting that this experiment isn't going well for us. Studies now link excessive technology use to rising rates of anxiety, depression, loneliness, and shortened attention spans. Many of us have the uncomfortable intuition that our devices are changing us in ways we didn't consent to and don't fully understand. What's most troubling isn't that we use these technologies, it's that they use us. The most powerful companies in history now compete for one resource above all others: your attention. And they employ thousands of engineers and psychologists to design products scientifically optimized to capture and hold that attention, regardless of the cost to your well-being or life goals. As technology investor Bill Gurley once admitted, "The best minds of my generation are thinking about how to make people click ads. That sucks." But what if there was an alternative approach to living alongside technology, one that allowed us to harness its benefits while avoiding its pitfalls? What if philosophical wisdom from nearly 2,000 years ago could provide a framework for using digital tools in a way that serves our values rather than undermining them? Today, on the Contemplative Path, we'll explore how ancient Stoic philosophy offers a surprisingly relevant approach to our modern technology challenges. We'll uncover the hidden costs of our always-connected lifestyle, examine how Stoic principles can guide intentional technology use, develop mindful media consumption practices, and create meaningful digital boundaries that enhance rather than eliminate human connection. Whether you're concerned about your own technology habits or simply seeking a more intentional relationship with digital tools, this exploration offers practical wisdom for reclaiming your attention in an age of distraction. Let's begin by understanding the true scope of our current situation. The term addiction is sometimes contested when applied to technology, but the neurological evidence is compelling. Studies using fMRI scans show that the same dopamine-driven reward pathways activated by substances and gambling are triggered by social media notifications, email checking, and other digital activities. The variable reward mechanisms built into our apps, what former Mozilla and Jawbone employee James Williams calls industrial-scale persuasion technologies, exploit the same psychological vulnerabilities as slot machines, but with greater sophistication and precision. What makes these technologies uniquely powerful is their ability to target individual psychological profiles. Unlike earlier mass media, digital platforms track your behavior, learn your vulnerabilities, and adapt to exploit them more effectively over time. The algorithms aren't optimizing for your well-being or helping you achieve your goals. They're optimizing for maximum engagement, regardless of the content or consequences. As computer scientist and philosopher Jaron Lanier puts it, it's the gradual, slight, imperceptible change in your own behavior and perception that is the product. This technological environment poses challenges that the ancient Stoics could never have imagined. And yet, their philosophy developed precisely to help people maintain autonomy and wisdom in environments designed to manipulate them. The Roman Empire of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca was filled with distractions, spectacles, and social pressures that pulled people away from their deeper values. The Stoics developed practices specifically to maintain focus on what truly mattered, amid a culture of excess and distraction, a challenge remarkably similar to our own. The hidden costs of our digital lifestyle extend far beyond the time visibly spent on devices. Consider what psychologists call attention residue, the diminished cognitive capacity that persists after switching from one task to another. Every notification check, every quick glance at email, every scroll through social media leaves a cognitive remainder that impairs your ability to focus fully on subsequent tasks. Research from the University of California found that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully regain focus after a digital interruption. Yet most of us interrupt ourselves far more frequently than that. There's also what philosopher Matthew Crawford terms attentional commons, the shared spaces of attention that we once took for granted, but that are now colonized by commercial interests. From airports to restaurants, from subway cars to city streets, spaces that once allowed for thought, conversation, or simply being present are now filled with screens demanding attention. This erosion of attentional commons represents a profound, but largely invisible cost to our collective well-being. Perhaps most concerning is what constant digital stimulation does to our capacity for depth. Neuroscientist Michael Merzenich, a pioneer in brain plasticity research, warns that the brain massively adapts to frequent digital interruptions by developing a constant craving for novel stimulation. Over time, this rewiring makes it increasingly difficult to engage in deep reading, sustained thought, or meaningful conversation, the very activities that historically have produced human wisdom, creativity, and connection. The Stoics would immediately recognize this situation as a threat to our most fundamental freedom, the freedom to direct our own attention according to our values. Epictetus began his manual of Stoic practice with a crucial distinction. Some things are within our power, while others are not. What lies within our power, he explained, includes our faculties of judgment, motivation, desire, and aversion. In other words, our inner capacity to choose what we value and where we direct our attention. For the Stoics, this faculty of choice, prohairesis, is the essence of human freedom and dignity. No external force, not even imprisonment or death, can take away this internal freedom unless we surrender it voluntarily. Yet today, many of us surrender this freedom hundreds of times daily, allowing our attention to be captured and directed by algorithms designed explicitly to override our rational preferences. The first Stoic principle we can apply to technology use is this fundamental dichotomy of control. By clearly distinguishing what we can and cannot control in our digital environment, we reclaim agency. We cannot control the existence of persuasive technologies, the actions of tech companies, or the broader social norms around digital communication. But we absolutely can control our technology choices, usage patterns, environmental design, and internal responses to digital triggers. This distinction leads naturally to a second Stoic principle: virtue as the only true good. The Stoics argued that external things, wealth, status, pleasure, even health, are preferred indifference. They might be naturally desirable, but they aren't necessary for a good life and shouldn't be pursued at the expense of virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Applied to technology, this principle helps us evaluate digital tools based not on their entertainment value or social currency, but on whether they help or hinder our pursuit of virtue. Consider how social media platforms often cultivate vanity rather than wisdom, competitive comparison rather than justice, social conformity rather than courage, and unlimited consumption rather than temperance. The Stoic approach doesn't require rejecting these technologies outright, but it does demand that we use them in ways aligned with our deeper values rather than in ways that undermine them. A third relevant Stoic concept is negative visualization, premeditatio malorum, the practice of periodically imagining the loss of things we value as a way to both appreciate them more fully and reduce unhealthy attachment. Many of us harbor unexamined fears about disconnecting from technology. What might we miss? How will others react? Will we fall behind? By deliberately contemplating a digital minimal life, we can test these fears against reality and often discover them to be exaggerated. This brings us to practical applications. How can we implement these Stoic principles to develop a healthier relationship with technology? Let's explore specific practices that blend ancient wisdom with modern context. First, the practice of digital cost accounting, systematically examining the true price of your technology use. The Stoics regularly conducted evening reviews to evaluate whether their actions aligned with their principles. Similarly, we can assess our digital habits by asking, what am I giving up to maintain this level of connectivity? How is this technology affecting my attention, relationships, productivity, and character development? What opportunities for depth and meaning am I sacrificing for convenience and distraction? This isn't abstract philosophy, it's practical self-knowledge. Try tracking your actual screen time for a week without judgment, simply gathering data about where your life is going. Many people discover they're spending 3 to 4 hours daily on smartphones alone, amounting to 45-60 full days per year. The Stoics would ask, is this investment producing corresponding benefits in your life quality? Would you consciously choose to spend 2 months of each year this way if the choice were made explicit? Second, the practice of technological intentionality, adopting a philosophy of technology use based on your deepest values. Digital minimalism, as defined by computer scientist Cal Newport, doesn't mean rejecting technology, but rather asking technology to prove its value before allowing it into your life. This aligns perfectly with the Stoic emphasis on conscious choice, rather than passive acceptance. Start by identifying the core values you want your life to embody, perhaps deep work, meaningful relationships, physical health, creative expression, or civic engagement. Then evaluate each digital tool by asking, does this technology genuinely help me advance these values? Is it the best way to do so? Are there significant costs that outweigh the benefits? This value-based assessment often reveals that many digital tools we consider necessary are actually detracting from our most important goals. Third, the practice of attention training, deliberately strengthening your capacity to control and direct attention. The Stoics developed prosauche, focused attention, through regular mindfulness exercises. In our digital context, this might include daily periods of complete disconnection, single tasking rather than multitasking, and gradually extending your capacity for deep focus. Start small, perhaps with a 30-minute period each day completely, free from digital interruption. Use this time for reading, thinking, or any activity requiring sustained attention. Gradually extend this period as your capacity increases. The goal isn't permanent disconnection, but rather developing the attention muscles that allow you to use technology on your terms, rather than being used by it. Fourth, the practice of digital environment design, creating physical and virtual spaces that support rather than undermine intentional living. The Stoics recognize that environment significantly influences behavior, which is why they carefully curated their living spaces and social circles. In our digital context, this means deliberately structuring your technology environment to align with your values. Practical steps might include removing social media apps from your phone while keeping them on a less accessible device, using apps and browser extensions that block distracting websites during work hours, creating physical charging stations outside your bedroom, and designating certain spaces or times as technology-free. These environmental interventions reduce the willpower required to maintain healthy digital habits. Fifth, the practice of mindful consumption, bringing full awareness to how you engage with media. The Stoics advocated careful selection and digestion of reading material, advising against scattered, superficial exposure to too many authors. Seneca warned, the primary sign of a mind in good health is that it can stay in one place and linger in its own company. Today, mindful media consumption might include adopting slow media principles, consuming fewer, better sources of information, practicing information fasting, designated periods without news or social media, using techniques like the read it later approach, saving content for batch processing rather than immediate consumption, implementing a quality screen for media, consuming only what provides genuine value rather than mere distraction. Finally, the practice of social boundary setting, maintaining digital limits without sacrificing meaningful connection. The Stoics emphasize that humans are social beings meant to contribute to their communities, so healthy technology use shouldn't lead to isolation. Instead, it should enhance our capacity for genuine engagement. This might involve clearly communicating your communication preferences to others, for instance that you check email twice daily rather than continuously, suggesting alternative modes of interaction when digital channels seem inadequate, creating technology-free social rituals, and modeling healthy digital habits for those around you without judgment or evangelism. What's particularly powerful about the Stoic approach to technology is that it focuses on the internal rather than merely the external. Many digital detox programs emphasize rules and restrictions without addressing the underlying motivations and fears that drive compulsive technology use. The Stoics understood that lasting change requires not just different behaviors, but different values and perspectives. Consider how many of us turn to devices out of FOMO, fear of missing out. The anxiety that, without constant connection, we'll miss important information or social opportunities. The Stoic response would be to examine this fear directly. What exactly might you miss? How important is it really? What might you gain by missing it? This internal dialogue transforms vague anxiety into rational assessment, often revealing that what we fear missing is far less valuable than what we're currently missing by being constantly connected. Similarly, many struggle with the social pressure to remain constantly available through digital channels. The Stoic virtue of courage, Andrea, is directly relevant here. The willingness to stand by your principles even when they contradict social expectations. As Epictetus advised, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. Applied to our digital context, this means accepting that some might initially find your communication boundaries inconvenient or unusual, while recognizing that meaningful relationships will adapt and may even be strengthened by more intentional interaction. A key Stoic insight, particularly relevant to technology use, is the distinction between hedonia, pleasure-based happiness, and eudaimonia, meaning-based flourishing. Much digital technology is explicitly designed to maximize hedonic rewards, the small dopamine hits from likes, notifications, and novel content. The Stoics recognize that while pleasure isn't inherently bad, organizing life around its pursuit leads to diminishing returns and increasing dissatisfaction. By contrast, eudaimonia comes from living virtuously, developing excellence of character, and contributing meaningfully to others. Pursuits that often require delaying immediate gratification for deeper satisfaction. Digital minimalism based on Stoic principles reorients technology use toward eudaimonic goals, using digital tools to deepen knowledge, strengthen relationships, create value for others, and support virtuous living. As we conclude this exploration, I want to emphasize that the Stoic approach to technology isn't about rejection, but about reclamation. Taking back your attention and intentionality in a world designed to capture and monetize them. The goal isn't to live like an ancient Roman, but to apply timeless wisdom to very modern challenges. Imagine what might change if you approach technology with the mindset of a Stoic philosopher. Perhaps you'd still use social media, but deliberately and sparingly, as a tool for meaningful connection rather than endless scrolling. Maybe you'd still carry a smartphone, but with settings configured to serve your goals rather than the goals of attention engineers. You might still consume digital content, but with careful curation and periods of deliberate reflection. The changes might seem subtle from the outside, but the internal difference would be profound. Instead of being constantly reactive to the digital environment, you'd be proactive, choosing when, how, and why to engage based on your deeper values. Instead of experiencing the restlessness and anxiety that often accompany digital addiction, you'd cultivate the tranquility, ataraxia, that comes from living according to your principles. And instead of fragmenting your attention across countless digital inputs, you'd develop the capacity for depth that makes life genuinely satisfying. I invite you to experiment with just one Stoic-inspired digital practice this week. Perhaps try a daily period of complete disconnection, or conduct a value-based assessment of a single digital tool, or practice mindful awareness during your next social media session. Approach this experiment with the Stoic virtue of practical wisdom, phronesis, not rigid adherence to rules, but thoughtful application of principles to your specific circumstances. If you found value in this exploration, please consider subscribing to The Contemplative Path for more content bridging ancient wisdom with contemporary challenges. In our next video, we'll explore the economy of attention and how philosophical principles can help us reclaim our most valuable resource in an age of endless demands. Thank you for your focused attention on this topic, an increasingly rare and precious gift in our distracted age. Until next time, may you use technology wisely and live according to your deepest values.